Hello guys, today we will talk about the CRUD operation, a simple to-do app where we can add something on the browser, on the DOM, or we can play with it. It is just that toggling effect. When we click, it's done. When we click, not done. And here is a delete operation, which it deletes from the DOM. And after the refreshing, it will not come. Okay, suppose I add the name here, Rakesh. Okay, and after clicking the add name, and suppose another name, Mahesh. After clicking all these come in this form. Okay, and after clicking on this color will change. Not done to done. Okay, not done to done, it's called the toggling effect. And when we click the delete button, it performs a delete operation. Okay, and you can store it in local storage. Okay, so we see it from scratch, right? We code it from scratch. Here I create the index file, index.html, and in the script file I created a index.js, and in the style file I create index.css. And in the index file, let's print the boilerplate. And in the boilerplate, we have to connect the CSS file. Okay, link CSS. Style index.css, and we have to also connect the JavaScript file, right? And JavaScript file. JavaScript JS file is present in index script file. Okay, now in index.html, what we have to create? Firstly, COVID vaccination system, right? In the headline. As we practice, let's take it as navbar. Okay, there is a navbar in which there are many options like login, sign up, cart, and many options. It's the heading. Okay, suppose it's a navbar. Okay, navbar, and this is the input types. Input, and this is the button, right? So, firstly, we create a div in which we add a class navbar div. Okay, navbar div, and in this div we create h3 tag in which COVID vaccination system, COVID vaccination system. Okay, and then another div for this input, right? Another div for the input dot input div, and this input div we have one input text in which the placeholder will be enter your name here. Okay, enter name, right? So it's under the placeholder property, placeholder, enter your name. Enter candidate's name is far more better, right? Enter candidate's name. And now there is one button called add name, right? So we have to also create that button. Add name, right? And this all the names are appended here in this format, tabular form. Like if we John added like this with two buttons, right? Now Ram, all the names coming here with two buttons, not done and a delete button, right? Two buttons. So we if we created a div called navbar in which we take the COVID vaccination system S3, And another div, we take input text and a button. Now we have to dynamically, this is because this is dynamically appended here, not appended by hard coded, right? So we have to dynamically append here, like div. We have to create a div, and in this div, suppose class all to do div. Okay, all to do div, and in this div, there is name with two buttons. Okay, we firstly made this using hard coded, and after that we code this dynamically, right? So there is a s3 element, and in this name, suppose John Doe. Okay, and there is a button, uh, not done, and there is one more button called delete, right? There is one more button called delete. Oh, you see here, firstly, if we add any name, Syam, if we add any name, it comes with the not done, and after clicking on that, you are able to done or not done. Okay, it is a default, by default it's not done, and after clicking on the delete button, it performs a delete operation, right? So let's open this the live server. Yeah, came here. No, we have to set up these things in the center, right? We have to set up in these things center. So what we do, we have to write a little bit CSS for these things. Navbar div, input div, and add to do div. And for the navbar div, index.css, navbar div, uh, display flags, and justify content center. Okay, this places here, right? And one more things, input div, input div, display flags, justify content center. With the help of this, these things will be centered, and we have to also center these things, right? And in one line, in single line, guys, in single line. So here we can create one more div under this. Let's create, and all these things are append in the this div, right? Now add to do div, add a CSS, add to do div, child div, display flags, justify content center, right? With the help of display flags, you can center anything, right? And here is the size of button is bigger, right? So we can also control these things, right? So for the button, what we can do in the button section, we can write a CSS code like tag button, select a tag button with 100 pixel, height 50 pixel, and just these things. Okay, and add it to the div, input div, margin bottom, margin bottom 20 pixel. If you give the margin bottom, then it's separated, right? Now we have to do what things, we have to some we have to give some style on this input div and this button, right? We have to style all those things, a simple style, right? So where is it? We have to separate these things, right? So you can give id here, id, add to do button, right? And add to do button, add to do button, margin left to right. See what happens? Gap, right? And the input box, and in the input box, so what is the adding input box? We have to also here add input value, right? So we can catch it easily. Input value height to RAM with 250 pixel, and the now see what these things, and we have to change also buttons height, right? Buttons height to RAM button height. Now see, right? And in this, we have to center these things. Okay, so in the input div called todo div, comment these things and write one more property. Just to try align items center. See what happens. Yeah, it is in the center, and justify content also center. Justify content center. Yeah, see, it's cool, pretty cool. If you want to gap between these things, you can gap. Okay, so now when we add the name here, when we add name here, after clicking on that button, it should be present on the browser, right? So what we have to do, firstly we have to add event listener on this button, right? We have to add event listener on this button. So go to the JS, and in which button we have to add event listener, we have to add event listener in this button, add to do button. So firstly we have to catch this button. This is id, control plus c, index js, and let input button equal to document dot get element by id, and in this button we have to input button dot add event listener. What operations? Click, and here you can describe a function like a handle to do, right? And now you can write a separate function handle to do, function handle to do, right? Now check, we can also check alert I am running. Now check here, after clicking on that there is a alert come I am running. Okay, that means our button works perfectly. So now what we have to do, we have to catch the input things, we have to catch the value from this input. So how can we catch the value from input? Go to the HTML part, and what is the id input value? What is the id for here into value and catch this, let name equal to document dot get element by id and dot value, because we want value, for that, right? And now the main part comes here. Now for these operations, what we have to do, we have to create first names. Okay, all the data comes here. When we add some names here, when we add some names here, all the data comes here like an array of object, right? This is the one object, this is the another object, this is another object, this is another object. Every object has a name and two buttons. Every object has names and two buttons. So we create here const payload equals to a object, and in this name, key as name and the property is name, right? From here it access the name in the name. Okay, and for this button, for for toggling and for delete operation, what we have to do? For toggling we have to, it's by default not done, right? By default not done, so we can take a boolean value like status will be false by default, right? And for the delete button, what we have to what is the main important thing? ID, a unique ID. So ID, we can create a unique ID date dot know. It gives always a unique ID, right? You can also check in the console date dot know. It gives this ID, and again when we date dot know, see here, always it gives a different id, right? Always it gives a different id, so we use here id. And for a specific purpose you can also add here name. This name will come here. You can change this value to do, right? To do, and yeah, all things. And now we create a object, right guys? We create a object, but what we want array of object, right? We want array of object. We create only one object here right now. Now we want array of object, so that we have to push this object into an array. So we can create an array. Let to do array equal to an empty array, and in this array we have to put all the things. To do array dot push payload, right? To do array dot push payload. And now we have to store these things in local storage. So local storage dot set item in to do's, and before sending in local storage we have to stringify the JSON data. JSON dot stringify to do array, right? Now you can check here, this is the hour, and here when we add ram, here it's not to do another name like students, right? Students. And when we add here Clement and add, nothing is present in the DOM, but in the local storage you can see these things, right? Applications in to do's empty value, Yeah, in the student section, you can see here in the student section, we have this to do Clement status false and the ID is this, right? Right, and if we add another name like Raju and add the another object will come Raju status false and the different id, guys, different id here, name is present in the last because we add name here, right? So it is present here. Now what we have to do, we have to show these things into our dom into here, right? So we have to wrote another function called function render, right? And function render, and call this function render with to do array. Okay, to do array. And guys, one more thing, guys. If you see here, inspect application here, and if we refresh, guys, if we refresh, like refresh, and let's add another name, Mohan. Add here, only one Mohana is present here. Where all others goes? Okay, where all others goes? Like if we add here Mohan, Mohana, add Sohan, add Raju, add, and you can see in the local storage, there is Mohana, Sohan and Raju present. Okay, and after refreshing these things, if we add another name called Monu Srivastav, and after clicking on the add button, all things gone, and Monu Srivastav is only the first object here. This is the array of object you can see here, right? So for this, what we have to do here, it is because of this line, guys, line number 4, because every time this was empty. So what we have to do, we have to get the data from local storage. JSON dot parse local storage dot get item students, and if the items is not present in the local storage, then create a empty array, right? Then create the empty array. Now it works fine. Like Rohan, add Sohan, add, and go to the local storage, Monu, Rohan, Sohan, and after refreshing this, if we add another name like Rohit, and after clicking this, all these things, right? Rohit is the fourth at index 3, right? And again, if we add someone says Sunny Leone, okay, as you develop by Leone, Sunny Leone, okay. So Sunny Leone is at index 4, right? With status false and with the unique ID, right? Now you understand. Now we have to show in the DOM. So we write a function render, and in this function we have to pass this array of object, right? Array of object, and now here you can do anything to do's. Now with the higher order function to do's dot map element Now most important part come here, right? Because how to append in index.html, we already created these things. What we have to do, right? See here, it is hard coded, created, not dynamically created. It is created by hard coding this code. So now we have to create these things dynamically. These things dynamically. So we have to first create a div and S3 and two buttons. Div S3 and two buttons, right? Index.js, let main div equal to document dot create element div, and let h3 equal to document dot create element h3, and we have to button, let update button, toggling button, right? Toggle button equal to document dot create element button, and one more button called a delete button. Delete button equal to with document dot create element button, right? Now all things created, S3, toggle button and delete button. Now what we have to do, we have to append these all things, like main div dot append h3 toggle button and delete button, and main, we have to also append the main div into this div, right? From the class we have to append in this. So here, like container equal to document dot query selector, right? And in this container we have to append container dot append main div. Yeah. And now in the S3, here we do it hard coded, right? Here we do it hard coded. Now we created it dynamically. Now we created it dynamically, and we have to add the text content in the S3 button, right? So here you can set attribute like h3 dot text content equal to el dot to do. From where el dot to do comes here, okay? Because what does map function, map higher order function does, what map higher order function does, map higher order function choose every space, every elements, every object, right? Every object, one object, so name is present in to do, so el dot to do, and toggle button is by default not done, right? So here if we check, if el dot status, el dot status, that means el dot status will be true, right? It means el dot status, you can also write like this, el dot status equals to true, okay? And you can also write like that, el dot status, if el dot status true, then what we have to do, then we have to toggle button dot text content equal to done, right? When the status is false, by default it is false, but when it is true, then shows. And also the color, toggle button dot style dot background color background color equal to be green. And if it is false, then the same line I copy and paste it here with not done, right? And the color, background color will be red, right? So here all the things can, if here delete operation not works, but uh, mm, no any other operations worked here. It is why it comes here, because we added it into the this local storage. If we delete from the local storage, then nothing is here, right? Nothing is here. Now if we add the name like Radhe Shyam, nothing comes here. Any problem? Go to the console. No any problem again. Then what? Yeah, Radhe Shyam comes here. Sometimes it, and if again another name like Mohan Das, and after clicking, white not comes because we didn't call it the render function in this here. We have to add event listener. We have to catch the button and add event listener to them and create a function. But in this function, we didn't call the render function in this function under this function. So we have to call the render function here, right? We have to call the render function here. Here you can call render to do array. Now it works fine, I think. Oh my God, what is it? Mohan. Can you guys understand what is it? Why it's happening? Because when we when we catch the container every time we don't null, we add all the things. So we have to container dot inner html equals to null, and every time we add only the new things, not the same things repeated in the container, right? Now just go to the local storage and it delete all the things from here. Now add one by one, just check it works properly or not. John Doe, come here. Clement, come here. Rocky, come here. It perfectly fine. After refreshing it, nothing changes, and you can see in the local storage. Oh no, you can see in the local storage all the things John Doe, Clement, and Rocky appears in the form of array of object, right? Now we have to toggle this button. We have to toggle this button, right? And the delete button cannot see because of its background. So we have to add the background on the delete button, right? So for the more clarity, you can do these all the things, right? And this, yeah, yeah. This is the function for the appending. appending operation, here appending operation, and here create. We create, right? We create in the CRUD operation. What we have to here, we create append. Now we have to play with the toggle button, right guys? We have to play with the toggle button, and before this, before going toggle button, the delete is not visible, right? So we can do here delete button dot style dot background color equal to be violet. Let's see, violet, and the color, why color is not appearing here? Not done because we didn't add anything in the text content, right? So we have to add delete button dot text content equal to be delete, right? Now you are able to see the delete and not done, right? So after clicking on the not done, it becomes a toggling. We want these things. So for the toggling effect, we have to add event listener. Add event listener on which button? Not done button, right? In this button, update. This means a toggle button. We have to add event listener on the toggle button. So toggle button dot add event listener, click operation will be performed, and here if guys, for the toggling effect we need id, and here in the first line we create a function. After after adding add event listener, we pass the function like this, because add event listener passes our functions themselves, right? We have no need to give this parenthesis, this here add event listener passes this, right? So if we passes here directly, then how we can get the id? So for that, we have to pass call the we have to pass the anonymous functions, right? We have to pass anonymous function, and in which we have to call handle handle toggle button and el dot id. Why el dot id? Because the id is present in this id. And why el dot id? Because map functions, map el choose always one thing, so always an object from an array, right? So el dot id. Now we have to create a function using this name, function, and here we have to pass only id, because here from where el elements comes, right? So this, and yeah, no, no guys, if el dot id equal to be id, that means we click on the same button, because if we click on that, this will be only not done to done, done to not done, right? So we have to id for these things. So if el dot id equals to id, then we have to return all the things using spread operator, all the thing. No, 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 guys, here we have to also perform a map operation, because from where all the elements, we have to access all the elements present in this array, and right, in this array of object we have to catch all the elements. So all to catch all the elements, we use map functions, higher order functions. So here to do array equal to a to do array dot map, Here we just reassign the things to do array, and here to do array is presented. To do array is presented, right, at the line number 4, and we reassigned this to do array dot map el. And now if el dot id equal to the id, then what we have to return? We have to return all the things like to do name, like to do el dot to do, and then id el dot id, and then status. Status only we have to change the status not equal to a status, right? But no need to these things. Why we need, we wrote here not status? Because if we click here not done to done, and if we only here yes, then we are not able to do not done. Okay, that's why. And else, and the else false return el. Let's see it work or not. It not works. Let's minimize these things using spread operator. Oh my god, here el dot status, because everything is every time status comes from el, because here we use a higher order functions, right? And we have to also call the append function here, render to do array, right? Now let's check. Yep, it works, guys, it works, but it only not done to done. We are unable to do done from not done from done. So find out the mistake. Um, Set these things in local storage dot set item students json dot stringify to do array, and something is missing. Status el dot not equal el dot status el dot id not equals. If we put here not equals, then no, 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 no. Just to check, guys, why we can't operate this done to not done function? Handle toggle button id, handle toggle button el dot id el. If el dot id equals to be id, return el, otherwise return el, else return el. If we escape these things, and then what the problem comes, actually I'm not able to find where I lagging. Else el dot id to map render to do array local storage set item string part to do array container handle toggle button el dot id click All things seems right, but why it not works? Status real dot status. If just like this, then no guys, something happened. Let me check. So guys, here we did mistakes in this in the spelling status status. For this we face this problem. Now it's clear, right? We can do toggling effect here. If we add any name, Mohan Gopal, add. By default it's not done, and after clicking not done, it's done. Now we have to perform the delete operation, right? We have to perform this delete operation. After clicking on the delete button, this row, this object will be deleted. After click on this object delete button, this will be deleted, right? So for this we can add event listener on the delete button, right? So delete button dot add event listener, and the click event will be performed. And again we have to do we have to play with the id for deleting, so we have to pass a higher order function again. And in this handle delete button el dot id, right? And we have to just copy these things and write a function this, and from here el will be removed, only id will, right? Now we have to delete these things, so we can easily filter it out. Firstly we have to reassign this to do array equal to do array dot filter. Filter is another higher order function. Dot filter el, filter is another higher order function in which we return only these things. Return el dot id not equals to id, right? And then yep, all these things, and we have to call the update local storage dot set item students, and json dot stringify to do array, and call the render function here to do array, right? No, check the delete operation. Yeah, it's delete, 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 right? It works fine. Now add with Sankar. It's by default comes with not done button, and we can toggle in this button, and we can also add Mahaswar, another Mahakalesh. Now we can toggle this button, right? We can toggle this button, and we also delete this, delete these things. After refreshing, it will not go. We can delete these things, and we can add these things easily, right? And so this is the delete operation. Here we perform delete operation, and here toggle operation. So guys, let's revise it from the scratch. Very first, we created an div in which a three tag COVID vaccination system, and then we created a input div in which a input box is presented with placeholder enters candidate's name and a button at the name. Okay, and the another div we have to put all the names with two buttons in this div, right? So it's the basic some CSS here, and in index.js. Firstly, we catch the input. Firstly, we catch the button by which clicking all things happened, and add event listener to this button, and pass the function here without any parenthesis, because add event listener call themselves in this, and now we create this function handle to do, and in this we store the value from the input box, and we create a object, because in these things three things are presented. The first thing is name. We catch the name from the input because we want name from the users, so name comes here, and status by default it is false, and the id for the delete and toggle operation it is needed, so you can create the unique id by this date dot now, right? And now we want the array of object, so that we create a array, and push this object into the array, and store these things into the local storage, and local storage, and call the functions here. Now we create a append function name as render in, and in this thing, so we firstly catch the container in which we have to put all these things in when we hard coded these things, all things are present in all to do div. That's why we catch the things all to do div, and make container null always. If you can't make it null, all the things presented twice, it creates problem like this. You can see here. Mohan, Sohan. Again, Mohan and Sohan will come. So prevent this. Like John Doe. Again, Mohan, Sohan, John Doe come. Why? After refreshing, they gone. Why? Because of this. If you make it null, then this work properly, right? And in we map over this array of object, and create a main div first. Main div, this div main div, and s3, and with two buttons, h3 with two button. One name is toggle button, and the another is delete button. Now h3 text content, the name, and the name is present in which key? To do. Name is present in to do key. And then if we check if el dot status, that means status by default it is false, but we check if status is true, then so button shows done and color is green, and if the status is false, not done, red. And we have to toggle this, so we add event listener to them here. Why we use here callback function? Because we need to pass el dot id, and if we didn't use callback function here, so how can we pass in these things? Like in the very first line we create a function and pass without parenthesis. If we pass these things in add event listener line with parenthesis, it will not work, guys. Okay, so we use callback function here, and this function we wrote separately functional concept and toggle operation here. We reassigned to do array and map over it. And if we check if the id, both the id from this id, this id and this id el dot id and this id what we passes here, and this id, this and this is equal. If this is equal, then what is the split operator said? The split operator says all things remains the same, only changes on these things. Status, if it's done, make it not done. If it's not done, make it done. And everything returns el. And set these things in local storage. It means update the local storage and call the render function, append function, or render function, you can call anything. And delete operation, we have to append, we have to add event listener on delete button also. And why we use callback function here, that's the same reason, because we have to pass el dot id, right? And in the operation, only filters, we filter these things. If not equal, then return. That means if not equal, then return. If equal, then skip it. If equal, then skip it. And that means when we here, when we click on these things, if this id is unique, this id is unique, and this id is also unique, if we click this, and only that things return, only that things return which is not equal to, right? जो equal है वो skip हो जाएगा. जैसे when we click sohan, it is skipped, right? It is skipped. So I hope you understand these things. Thank you very, very much.